Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been with my boyfriend for about a year and a half now, and we don't get to do fancy date nights very often. We're both working full-time and taking classes part-time, so our usual idea of romance is splitting a pizza while watching something on his laptop. But his 23rd birthday was coming up, and I wanted to do something special. Not expensive special, just actual restaurant with real plates special. He'd been talking about this little Italian place downtown for months. One of his co-workers kept raving about their homemade pasta and how the whole vibe felt like eating in someone's grandmother's dining room. The catch was they didn't take reservations. You just showed up and hoped for the best. I figured a random Saturday night wouldn't be too crazy, so we decided to try our luck. We got there around 7 and the place was packed. I mean, completely full. The hostess, this sweet older woman with reading glasses on a chain, told us it would probably be half an hour. My boyfriend shrugged and said that was fine. We stood near the entrance with a few other couples, all of us trying not to look too hungry, while amazing smells drifted out from the kitchen. The restaurant itself was tiny, maybe 12 tables total, and they were crammed so close together that you could basically participate in your neighbor's conversation, whether you wanted to or not. I could see why they didn't take reservations. There was barely room to walk between seats, let alone manage a complicated seating chart. After 30 minutes of standing and watching people eat bread that looked incredible, the hostess finally called us. We got a little too top right in the middle of the room. The table was so small our knees touched underneath, but I didn't care. We ordered a bottle of red wine and started looking at the menu, already planning what we'd split because everything sounded amazing. The waiter came by and told us about the specials for the night. There was a carbonara that sounded perfect and some kind of seafood linguine that my boyfriend was eyeing. We'd just gotten our wine and placed our appetizer order when this family walked in. A mom, a dad, 2 younger kids maybe around 8 and 10, and a teenage son who had that universal look of a kid who'd been dragged somewhere against his will. The hostess greeted them and explained there'd be about a 25-minute wait. The mom's face immediately changed. Her whole expression went from normal to offended in about 2 seconds. She started demanding to know if the hostess was serious, complaining loudly that she had children with her, hungry children who needed to eat now. The hostess apologized and said she'd get them seated soon, but they were working through the list in order. The mom wasn't having it. She started looking around the restaurant like she was personally inspecting everyone's right to be there. She pointed at a foretop where an older couple was sitting and said something about how they didn't need all that space. Then she looked directly at us. I watched her eyes narrow like she'd just solved some great mystery. She walked over to our table, actually put her hand on the edge of it, and leaned down toward us. She asked if we'd mind moving so her family could sit, adding that we could wait a bit longer since we were young. I thought she was making some kind of weird joke. I looked at my boyfriend. He looked at me. Neither of us knew what to say. My boyfriend kind of laughed nervously and tried to be polite about it. He told her that it was actually his birthday, and that's why we were here. I thought maybe that would make her realize how ridiculous she was being. Instead, she doubled down. She told him that if it was his birthday, then he should be gentleman enough to offer his seat to a mother with hungry children. She went on about how young people today don't understand family values, and how when she was our age, people respected their elders and parents. My jaw actually dropped. We'd waited just as long as everyone else. We'd ordered. We had wine on the table. Our appetizer was probably already being made in the kitchen, and she genuinely expected us to just get up and let her family have our table because she decided her time was more valuable than ours. The waitress must have heard the whole thing because she came over immediately. She apologized to the mom but explained that she couldn't ask other guests to give up their tables. Everyone here had waited their turn. The mom pulled back from our table and crossed her arms. She announced loudly that this was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. She said something about how this place clearly didn't care about families or customer service. She turned and walked back to where her family was standing near the entrance. Her husband looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. He kept trying to quietly tell her to calm down, but she wasn't listening. The teenage son had his phone out and wasn't even pretending to pay attention. The younger kids just looked confused and kept asking when they could eat. But she wasn't done. She stood there with her family, and in a voice that was definitely loud enough for half the restaurant to hear, she said that people these days have no respect. None at all. She went on about how entitled young couples think they own the place just because they got there first. My boyfriend and I just looked at each other. The couple at the table next to us was clearly trying not to laugh. I saw the woman mouth something to her partner that looked like, "Oh my God." An older man at another table actually shook his head at the mom, like he was disappointed in her behavior. The waitress came back over and apologized for the interruption, which was sweet but completely unnecessary. It wasn't her fault some random woman decided we didn't deserve to sit at a table we'd waited for. She brought out our appetizer, this amazing bruschetta, and told us to enjoy. For the rest of the night, this woman kept staring at us. Every single time I looked up, there she was, staring daggers like we'd personally wronged her entire family. Her husband kept trying to distract the kids by pointing at things on his phone. The teenage son never looked up from his phone once. The younger kids were getting restless and starting to whine, but she just kept staring and making comments to her husband that were clearly meant for us to hear. Things about how some people have no manners and how the world is going downhill. They finally got seated at a bigger table on the other side of the room about 15 minutes later. Even then, I could see her looking over at us, occasionally shaking her head like we were the problem. At one point, she actually said something to the waiter about us, and I saw him just nod politely and walk away. My boyfriend and I tried to focus on having a good time. The pasta was incredible. We'd ordered the carbonara to share, and it was everything his co-worker had promised. The wine was perfect. We shared tiramisu for dessert, and the waitress even brought out a candle for him, which was really thoughtful. She told us happy birthday and said she was sorry about what happened earlier. We told her it wasn't her fault at all and thanked her for handling it so well. But the whole night had this weird cloud over it because of that interaction. We kept joking about it, trying to laugh it off, but it was just bizarre. The entitlement of walking up to strangers and demanding they give up their table because you think you deserve it more. The audacity of calling us disrespectful when she was the one interrupting our dinner and making a scene. The fact that she spent her own family's dinner staring at us instead of enjoying her time with her kids. When we finally left, the family was still there, still eating. The mom didn't look at us. Her husband gave us this apologetic little nod when we walked past, like he was trying to silently say sorry for his wife's behavior. The teenage son was still on his phone. The younger kids were arguing over something. My boyfriend held the door for me on the way out and said, "That was definitely memorable." I agreed and joked that he got some free audacity with his birthday dinner. We laughed about it the whole walk back to the car. He said, "At least we had a good story to tell people." I said next year we're picking a place that takes reservations. But seriously, the nerve of some people. I met my husband 5 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. We hit it off immediately and started dating within weeks. His mom was welcoming from the start and treated me like family even before we got engaged. She's always been kind and generous, the type of person who remembers everyone's birthday and sends thoughtful cards. I genuinely liked her and felt lucky to have such a warm relationship with my mother-in-law. The only quirk I noticed early on was her obsession with social media. She posted constantly about everything: what she ate for breakfast, the weather, random thoughts throughout the day. She had built up quite the following over the years with around 2,000 people keeping up with her daily updates. Everything she shared was set to public too, never just friends or family. She once told me she liked knowing her posts could reach anyone who might find them interesting. What really surprised me was learning she used to run my husband's social media accounts when he was younger. She would post on his behalf throughout his childhood and teenage years, He showed me some of the old posts once and we laughed about how awkward they were. Status updates about his homework, photos from school events, updates about his grades and achievements, all written as if they were coming from him but obviously crafted by his mom. After we started dating, I noticed our photos would end up on her page pretty regularly. I'd send her a picture of us at dinner or on a hike, and within hours it would be shared publicly with some caption about how blessed she was. Sometimes I'd scroll through her feed and find photos I didn't even know she had taken, pictures snapped during family gatherings that I hadn't noticed her capturing. It made me a little uncomfortable, but she seemed so happy sharing these moments that I didn't want to make waves. My husband felt the same way. It seemed like a harmless thing his mom enjoyed. The situation became more complicated when we both started demanding new jobs. My schedule became unpredictable with odd shifts and his required occasional weekend work. We still made time for each other, but visiting his parents together became difficult. He managed to drive out and see them a few times on his own, but I couldn't join him. We kept promising we'd make the trip together soon, but months kept passing. Then yesterday, my phone rang. It was my mom. She asked if I was visiting my in-laws that weekend. I told her I wasn't, and that I was actually at home. She said that was strange because my mother-in-law had just posted photos of us all watching the game together. I felt confused and opened social media on my phone while still talking to her. Sure enough, there was a post from my mother-in-law showing all four of us sitting on a couch. We were wearing matching jerseys for some football team. Everyone was smiling at the camera. The photo looked professional and polished, except it wasn't real. I had never been to their house recently. We didn't own those jerseys. The image was completely fabricated using artificial intelligence. I told my mom I'd call her back and hung up immediately. I showed the post to my husband. His face went pale as he stared at the screen. He said it was really weird and asked why she would do this. I suggested he text her and ask her not to make these kinds of photos anymore. He agreed without hesitation. We both found it creepy and misleading. People were commenting on the post, thinking we had actually been there. Friends and relatives were asking how the visit went. My own parents had been fooled completely. My husband typed out a polite message explaining that while we appreciated her wanting to share family moments, we weren't comfortable with artificially generated images of us. He asked if she could stick to real photos only. We both expected her to understand. She had always been reasonable about everything else. Her response came faster than expected. She said she couldn't believe we were being so ungrateful. She claimed she did everything for us and this was how we treated her. My husband responded that we weren't trying to be ungrateful and just didn't want fake photos of us posted online. She fired back that we had always hurt her feelings when we complained about pictures. She said we were both too sensitive, especially me. She insisted she should be able to post what she wanted. I read the messages over his shoulder and felt my stomach drop. This wasn't the woman I'd known for 5 years. She was acting like we'd committed some terrible offense by asking for basic boundaries. My husband told her the artificial intelligence photos crossed a line and we were asking her to stop making them. She said fine, but not to expect her to post about us at all anymore. If we were going to be this difficult, then she just wouldn't include us. The conversation ended there. My husband and I sat in silence for a while, processing what had happened. He eventually said he was firm on the artificial intelligence photo boundary, but thought we could live with her regular posting habits. After all, she'd been doing that for years without major issues, but I couldn't shake the uncomfortable feeling. I had assumed I always had some say in what got shared about me. Now I realized I'd been naive. She'd been posting whatever she wanted all along, and this blow-up proved she had no intention of respecting our privacy. I told my husband I thought I needed to tell her I didn't want any pictures of me posted anymore, at least not without asking first. He asked if I was sure and said that might make things worse. I said maybe, but I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with this. He nodded slowly. He understood even if he wasn't ready to go that far himself yet. I drafted a message to her later that evening. I kept it respectful but clear. I explained that going forward I needed her to ask permission before posting any photos that included me. Family pictures from holidays and important events would be fine, but everything else required approval first. She never responded. 3 days have passed now and she has posted nothing about us at all. My husband says she'll come around eventually, but I'm not so sure. Part of me wonders if I should have just kept quiet and dealt with the discomfort. The other part knows I did the right thing by standing up for myself. Either way, things with my mother-in-law will never quite be the same. My husband and I had recently renovated our guest bathroom, and as a joke, we decided to install a gold-painted toilet. It wasn't real gold, obviously, just a regular toilet with gold-colored paint that looked ridiculously gaudy and over the top. The whole thing cost us maybe $40 at a discount home improvement store. We thought it was hilarious. During the gathering, my cousin showed up with her usual entitled attitude. She's always been the type to think the world owes her something, constantly complaining about how unfair life is while doing absolutely nothing to improve her situation. She'd been jobless for months, claiming no one would hire her because they were all jealous of her potential. The rest of the family had learned to just nod and smile whenever she went on one of her rants. She'd also been hinting around about needing money, asking different family members for loans that she never intended to pay back. My mom had lent her $300 just last month that we all knew she'd never see again. At some point during the party, she asked to use the bathroom. My husband, being the jokester he is, decided to have some fun with it. He directed her to the guest bathroom and made a big show of it, telling her that we'd upgraded to a gold toilet made of pure gold that cost us a fortune. He said it with the most ridiculous grin on his face, and everyone nearby started laughing. It was so obviously a joke. The toilet looked like something you'd find in a novelty store, not something actually valuable. Even my cousin laughed a little, though I noticed her staring at the toilet a bit too long when she came out of the bathroom. She commented on how impressive it was, trying to sound casual about it. She even asked if it was really solid gold. And my husband doubled down on the joke. He told her we'd spent thousands on it and that it was a limited edition piece. My uncle jumped in, saying we must be crazy to put something that expensive in a bathroom. My husband kept the joke going, saying we were basically royalty now and living the high life with our golden throne. More laughter from everyone. My aunt even chimed in about how tacky it looked, and we all agreed that was exactly the point. The conversation moved on, and I didn't think anything more of it. Fast forward to 3 nights ago. My husband and I were sound asleep when we heard noises coming from downstairs. It was around 2 in the morning. At first, I thought maybe our cat had knocked something over, but the sounds continued. Footsteps, things being moved around, metal scraping against porcelain. My husband sat up immediately, grabbing his baseball bat from beside the bed. He's always kept one there, just in case. I grabbed my phone and stayed behind him as we crept toward the stairs. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The noises were coming from the direction of the guest bathroom. We could hear grunting and what sounded like someone struggling with something heavy. Water was running, like someone had disconnected the pipe. My husband signaled for me to stay back, and he slowly made his way down the stairs in the darkness. I watched from the top of the staircase, my finger hovering over the emergency call button on my phone. The bathroom door was open and we could see a shadowy figure hunched over the toilet, tools scattered on the floor. Someone was literally trying to disconnect our toilet and steal it. My husband didn't hesitate. He flipped on the hallway light and swung the bat. The intruder let out a scream and stumbled backward, crashing into the wall before falling to the floor. That's when we both froze. It was my cousin. My husband asked what the hell she was doing, his voice filled with shock and confusion. She was lying on the bathroom floor wearing all black, like some kind of amateur burglar, surrounded by wrenches and a crowbar. There was a small toolbox next to her that she brought from home. She wasn't moving. My husband immediately dropped the bat and rushed over to her. I asked if she was okay, my voice shaking. My husband said he didn't know and that he hadn't even hit her that hard. He thought she must have hit her head on the wall when she fell. I called 911 immediately, my hands shaking while I explained the situation to the dispatcher. The whole thing felt surreal. My own cousin had broken into my house in the middle of the night to steal a painted toilet because she thought it was made of actual gold. The paramedics arrived within 10 minutes. They checked her over and determined she had a concussion from hitting her head on the way down. She was conscious by then, groaning and confused. She kept asking where the gold toilet was and saying she needed it. The paramedics looked at us like we were all crazy. They loaded her onto a stretcher and took her to the hospital. One of the police officers who responded took our statements. He kept trying not to smile when we explained about the gold-painted toilet and my husband's joke from the party. The officer walked over to look at it himself, shaking his head. He mentioned that he was surprised she really thought it was solid gold, barely containing his amusement. My husband explained that he'd been joking when he said it during the family gathering and that everyone had laughed. He thought it was obvious it wasn't real. I added that she'd even asked if it was really gold, and multiple people had laughed about how ridiculous the whole thing was. The officer said we'd be surprised what people convince themselves of when they think there's money involved. He mentioned another case where someone tried to steal copper pipes thinking they were worth thousands when they were maybe worth $50. They took photos of everything, the tools she'd brought, the scratches on the floor where she'd been trying to disconnect the plumbing, the broken window in the laundry room where she'd entered, the water damage on the bathroom floor from the disconnected pipe. She'd come prepared with a whole plan thinking she'd hit the jackpot. The officers found a handwritten note in her pocket with instructions she'd written to herself about how to remove a toilet. She'd actually researched this. My cousin is going to be fine, according to the hospital. Just a concussion and some bruising. But now we're stuck trying to figure out what to do next. She's family, but she also broke into our house. She could have just asked if she was that desperate, though I'm not sure what she expected us to say. Here's our priceless golden toilet, would never have been the response. My husband feels terrible about swinging the bat, even though he had every right to defend our home from an intruder. I keep telling him it's not his fault. How was he supposed to know it was my cousin creeping around our bathroom at 2 in the morning? The damage to our bathroom is going to cost around $800 to fix properly. The floor needs to be replaced where the water leaked, and the plumbing has to be reconnected. The whole family knows what happened now. My aunt called me crying, apologizing for her daughter's behavior. She offered to pay for the damages, but I know she's on a fixed income and can't afford it. Other relatives have been reaching out, some supportive, and others suggesting we just let it go because she's family. My uncle even said we should have known better than to joke about having something valuable, like it's our fault she decided to break into our house. But I can't stop thinking about how she was willing to destroy our bathroom and steal from us over a joke toilet. She didn't just make a bad decision in the moment, she planned this. She brought tools, broke in through a window, and tried to steal what she thought was worth thousands of dollars from family. We still haven't decided whether to press charges. Part of me wants to, because this can't just be swept under the rug. The officer told us we have up to a week to decide before they close the case as just a family dispute. But she's also family, and I know this will create a permanent rift that might never heal. My husband says it's completely my call since she's my cousin. He's worried about me being put in the middle of family drama, but he also thinks what she did was completely unacceptable. My mom called yesterday and begged me not to press charges. She said my cousin has already learned her lesson and that jail time would ruin her life. I reminded my mom that my cousin ruined this herself by breaking into our house. For now, we're taking some time to think about it. The gold toilet is still there, slightly scratched from her attempted theft. We're considering just replacing it with a normal one because looking at it makes me angry now. Every time I look at it now, I don't know whether to laugh or be angry. This whole situation is absolutely insane. I've been at the company for about 1.5 years when management decided we needed a clean desk policy. The reasoning made sense on the surface. We handled client data and there were concerns about confidentiality. Leaving documents out overnight wasn't ideal and keeping things tidy seemed fair enough. The policy itself was straightforward. Every desk had to be completely clear at the end of each day. No personal items, no work materials, nothing. The facilities team would do evening inspections and leave yellow cards on any desk that didn't meet the standard. 3 yellow cards meant your manager got involved. Here's the thing though, this policy didn't come from corporate. It didn't come from compliance or security. It came directly from my manager. And it came because exactly one person on our 14-person team had a genuinely chaotic workspace. Papers everywhere, coffee cups forming small archaeological layers, pens scattered like debris after a storm. Instead of having a direct conversation with that person, my manager sent an email to all of us announcing this new mandatory policy effective immediately. I read through the policy document 3 times. It was very clear. All items must be removed from desks. All items. I decided right then that I would follow this policy to the absolute letter. That first evening I started packing. Everything went into my bag, my keyboard went in first, then my mouse, the mousepad, my headset, the notebook I used for meeting notes, my pen holder with all my pens, the small succulent plant I kept on the corner of my desk, the sticky note dispenser, my water bottle, even the little phone stand I used. The only thing I left was my monitor because it was bolted to the desk mount and I physically could not remove it without tools. My desk looked like no one had ever sat there, completely bare except for the monitor standing alone like a monument to compliance. The next morning I arrived and spent 20 minutes unpacking everything and getting set up. Keyboard plugged in, mouse connected, mousepad positioned, headset untangled, pens arranged, plant back in its spot, everything exactly as it had been. That evening I packed it all up again. 10 minutes of carefully putting everything back into my bag. This became my routine every single day. My desk passed inspection every single night. No yellow cards. Perfect compliance. 3 weeks in, my manager stopped by my desk around 4:30 in the afternoon. She watched me start my packing routine. She asked if I really needed to take the keyboard and mouse home every day. I told her I was just following the policy. It said all items needed to be cleared. She said she thought we could make an exception for equipment. I reminded her that the policy didn't mention any exceptions. It said all items must be removed from desks. She looked at my bag where I was carefully wrapping my headset cord. She said this seemed excessive. I explained that I wanted to make sure I didn't get any yellow cards. 3 strikes and she would get notified. She walked away without saying anything else. 2 days later, an updated policy came through email. Equipment provided by the company could remain on desks. Only personal items and documents needed to be cleared away each night. I read the update carefully. Then I sent a reply to my manager. I copied the whole team. I wrote that I appreciated the clarification but needed further guidance. My plant was personal, my notebook was personal, but my keyboard technically belonged to the company, even though I brought it from home because mine was more comfortable. Where was the line exactly? What defined a personal item versus a company item? I got no response. I continued my routine. Everything still went into the bag. The updated policy said personal items, but didn't define what that meant. Better to be safe. The following week, another policy update arrived. This one included a list of exemptions. Computer equipment including keyboards and mice, monitor accessories, desk phones, company-provided stationery, charging cables. I read through the exemption list. My plant wasn't on it. Neither was my water bottle or my personal notebook. I kept packing those items every night. 4 days after the second update, my manager called a team meeting. All 14 of us crammed into the small conference room. She said she wanted to address some confusion about the clean desk policy. The goal was to maintain professionalism and protect sensitive information. It wasn't meant to be a burden. She looked directly at me when she said burden. She continued saying that they had provided clarifications and exemptions. She expected everyone to use common sense moving forward. One of my co-workers raised his hand. He asked what about personal photos? Could we leave those out? She said small personal items were fine when the desk remained tidy. I asked if we should add that to the written policy, just so it was clear. My manager's jaw tightened. She told us to use our judgment. I said that the policy stated compliance was mandatory and would be monitored through inspections. I preferred to have clear guidelines, so I knew I was in compliance. Another co-worker jumped in. They said they had gotten a yellow card last week because they left their coffee mug out. Was that allowed now or not? The meeting devolved into 20 minutes of people asking questions about items. My manager looked increasingly frustrated. The policy was quietly discontinued 2 weeks later. An email went out saying management trusted everyone to maintain appropriate workspace standards without formal monitoring. The person with the chaotic desk, their workspace looked exactly the same when it had before any of this started. Papers still everywhere, coffee cups still accumulating, nothing had changed for them. But I'd made my point. I moved out of my parents' house years ago when I turned 23. My boyfriend and I found a decent apartment across town, and we've been making it work ever since. I have a full-time job at an insurance company, and he works retail with inconsistent hours. Between both our schedules, we barely have time to keep our own place clean, let alone take care of a dog. My parents had a golden retriever named Buddy when I was growing up. I love that dog, but I also remember how much work he was. My mom would call me after school sometimes, asking me to come straight home to let Buddy out because she and my dad were running late. Even though I had homework or wanted to hang out with friends, I did it because Buddy was already part of the family before I was born. He was 12 when he passed away 2 years ago, and my mom cried for weeks. She told everyone who would listen that she was done with dogs. Too much responsibility, she said. Too heartbreaking when they die. So you can imagine my shock when she called me last month, giggling like a schoolgirl, telling me she just brought home a new puppy. A beagle mix, she said. So small and cute. I was confused but happy for her if that was what she really wanted. 2 days later, I picked her up for a doctor's appointment. The second she got in my car, she started talking about the puppy. She told me she should have left the puppy at my house with my boyfriend so he could watch her. I laughed because I thought she was joking. I asked her what she meant. She explained that she couldn't leave the puppy alone yet because she was too young. She said my dad took her to work with him that day, but next time she could just drop her off at my place. I pointed out that she never asked me about that. She brushed it off, saying she knew I wouldn't mind and it would just be for a few hours here and there. I didn't say anything else in that moment because I didn't want to start an argument before her appointment. But over the next 2 weeks, she kept bringing it up. Every phone call ended with some comment about how convenient it would be if I could just watch the puppy for an afternoon. She never actually asked. She just kept assuming. Meanwhile, she also kept complaining about how exhausting the puppy was, how she had to wake up early to let her out, how the puppy chewed everything, how she couldn't go anywhere without planning around the dog's schedule. The fourth time I heard her whining about it, I finally spoke up. We were sitting in her kitchen, and she was going on about how she couldn't even go grocery shopping without worrying about the puppy. I told her she really needed to think about whether she could commit to this. I reminded her that both she and my dad were 70 years old. I explained that I couldn't take care of the puppy for them. I said she chose to get the dog, so she needed to be responsible for her. I thought I was being reasonable. I was trying to set a boundary before this became a bigger problem. But my mom's face crumpled like I had just told her I hated her. She told me fine that I didn't have to take care of the puppy. She added that I didn't have to take care of her when she was old either. She said she would take care of herself. I tried to tell her that wasn't what I was saying. She cut me off, saying she got it. She said she raised me for 18 years, fed me, drove me everywhere, and now I couldn't even help her out for a few hours. I reminded her that I did help her. I pointed out that I drove her to her appointment last week. I mentioned that I picked up her prescriptions. I told her I helped her with her phone whenever it stopped working. But I explained that I had my own life and my own responsibilities. I said I didn't agree to dog sit. She didn't say anything after that. She just stared at her coffee cup, and I felt like the worst person in the world. I left her house feeling guilty and confused. That night, I posted about the situation on a subreddit, hoping for some outside perspective. I thought maybe people would understand where I was coming from. Instead, I got torn apart. Comment after comment told me I was selfish, that my mom sacrificed everything for me, and I couldn't even do this one thing for her, that I should just suck it up and make her happy. One person even said I was ungrateful and should be ashamed of myself. I deleted the post and sat on my couch, feeling even worse than before. My boyfriend tried to reassure me, but I couldn't shake the guilt. Was I really being unreasonable? Should I just agree to dog sit? and make everyone happy. The next morning, my mom called. I almost didn't answer, but I knew avoiding her would only make things worse. She told me she'd been thinking about what I said. She admitted that I was right. She apologized for assuming I would help without asking first. I was stunned. My mom rarely apologized for anything. I told her I was sorry too. I explained that I didn't mean to make her feel like I didn't care about her. I just said I couldn't take on another responsibility right now. She said she understood. She mentioned she was going to look into a dog walker or maybe doggy daycare for when she needed to go out. She told me that she and my dad would figure it out. Relief washed over me. We talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. I felt lighter than I had in days. Setting boundaries doesn't make me a bad daughter. It makes me someone who knows their limits. And despite what strangers on the internet said, I don't owe anyone my time just because they expect it from me. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.